Welcome to Cinemaphile, where we showcase the best in independent documentary and foreign filmmakers and talk to them about their work. I'm your host, Mike Kaspar. You can listen to other interviews by going to Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar at Spotify. Right Honourable Dame Jacinda Ardern, New Zealand's 40th Prime Minister, led her nation through unprecedented challenges, implemented bold policies, and became the second leader in history to give birth in office, all while championing an inclusive and empathetic leadership style that changed global expectations of what a leader can and should be. And we're joined today by the co-directors of this award-winning documentary film, Prime Minister Lindsay Utz and Michelle Walshe. To both of you, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
This is such a wonderfully intimate documentary film about a world leader, someone who I remember her time on the world stage as being just what I saw in this documentary, someone who seemed very open, honest about her feelings about different issues, and someone who was also dynamic. To both of you, and I'll start with you, Michelle. At what point, how did all of this come about? I know there was you found Clarke, her now husband, had filmed some of what she had been doing, but at what point did you think that this is something worth pursuing as a documentary film project?
My husband and I have a film production company in New Zealand called Dark Doris, and we love follow docs, and we've made a few of them. When you have access to an extraordinary leader like we did for some time, we helped with the Labour campaigns, and we got to meet Jacinda before she became Prime Minister. You're always drawn to extraordinary people. I think we're both very curious. I think the privilege of being in and around extraordinary people that are, well, actually, in some respects, ordinary people doing extraordinary things is a privilege. And it was very obvious early on that she was very different. She was very special. She had a magnetic energy. She was so grounded in her values. She was so young and fresh. And so, yeah, my husband, Leon, particularly built a great relationship with her and spent some time filming her. So a lot of the footage you see in the film, particularly when Clarke's in the film, is Leon's footage. But we didn't know what it would be. I think as in these instances, you just think, well, we're near this amazing person. Maybe we could do some extra rolling and see what happens. She certainly wasn't going to entertain a documentary whilst running a country and with a young child. But we built a really good relationship with them. And over the years, we're able to film some extraordinary things. And Clarke was the real gift as well, because he was a filmmaker who, for Neve's sake and for, as a lover of history, as Jacinda is, he filmed a lot. And so we had this vault of footage. And at the end of her term, we talked about doing a documentary. And that's when we found out she'd done these diaries, 40 hours of intimate diaries done every 2 weeks that weren't supposed to be released until after she died. And so you can imagine, as filmmakers, we were like, oh my gosh. So we took the film to the States, and we're very lucky to be introduced to Lindsay through Madison Wells, who financed the film. And it was just a great match. Lindsay and I, we had the same vision for the film. I really wanted an American perspective. She had her own feelings and relationship with Jacinda from afar. And it just felt like a really fantastic team. And then we were on a 1-year timeline to finish the film with hundreds of hours of footage. So,
oh my goodness. Lindsay Utz, in terms of her background, where did Jacinda come from? Was she in Parliament prior to her running for Prime Minister? How did she start as a politician?
She had done debate when she was younger. I think she was always interested in politics. Joined the Labour Party when she was in her early 20s, Michelle? Yes, but like you said, spent a lot of time as an MP in Parliament before she was thrust into the position that she finds herself in the first 5 minutes of the film. But as you can imagine, when I got a phone call about this project, that there was footage from behind the scenes of her administration, I was over the moon, because my work, I love films like this that span many, many years, where you really get to watch a person go on a journey, right? Because so much happens in their lives. So it only took me watching about 2 minutes of the material to know that I really wanted to work on this movie. I had watched and admired Jacinda from afar for many years. Obviously, I took note of her after she banned the guns, semi-automatic weapons after the Christchurch terrorist attack, and I was floored by her leadership there during the pandemic. I was desperate for science-based leadership, and I remember tuning into her COVID briefings like a lot of people did. They were playing them on cable news. And then when she resigned, I felt absolutely heartbroken because I was so inspired by her and just thought she was extraordinary. So, getting a call about this project was just incredible for me. And then I met all the Kiwis, and we had to kind of get to know each other and make sure that we shared a vision for what this could be, because we really wanted to craft the movie as a portrait that could be seen around the world, not just a New Zealand story, but really a larger personal film that touched on larger themes like motherhood, work-life balance, empathy, all the things that you see in the film, we thought would resonate with audiences worldwide. So that's the film that we set out to make. And Michelle and I were so lucky to have access to Jacinda after her resignation, where we filmed, a number of incredibly intimate interviews with her, and you get to watch her reflecting on those audio diaries and listening back to them. And that became a big part of how we structured the film and pulled all this material together.
It is inspiring to see someone who, in these relatively unguarded moments, as she has assumed leadership of New Zealand, to watch her ruminate and discuss and to have her own personal reservations about the decisions that she's made or has to make, is inspiring. I mean, for a lot of people, I think we see these people in government as I don't know, maybe heartless, maybe unthinking, maybe inconsiderate of others, and only pursuing a particular agenda. I like to believe they were all some version of Jacinda. I know that's not true, but it is inspiring for people who we need more people like her to be in government, someone who is this empathetic figure who has to make tough decisions. And Michelle, that's the thing for me, just in terms of just the sheer enjoyment of spending time with her and her family and the people around her, which is just incredible to watch the interaction she has, but also that we are capable as human beings of being able to govern a complex set of circumstances and still remain give and also be able to project the humanity that we all seek in our leaders. I believe that's really the heart of this.
I think you just nailed it there. For some reason, there's become such a disconnect with people that lead us and their humanity. And it's not really role modeled for us in any leadership position to see that empathy is a strength, not a weakness. The models of power that are rewarded are generally forceful. And so when as particularly as women, when you go into leadership, there's probably a subconscious and conscious sense that you need to emulate that strength. And actually what Jacinda shows us is that strength comes from empathy and humanity, sensitivity, all of those things. She was incredibly, she had so much resolve. It wasn't like she didn't achieve things and she wasn't incredibly effective. She just did it in a different way. And I think, to your point, I think a lot of leaders probably either when they first start, they don't feel like they can show that side of themselves, and perhaps it slowly gets further and further away from them. But at the end of the day, they are all human. And that was one of Jacinda's only requests. She said, if we make this film, I'd like it to be an accurate portrayal of my time. And I'd like to show that leaders are human.
And yes, and mission accomplished in that regard. By the way, I think I left something pretty important out during her first, 6 or 7 months in office. She gave birth to a beautiful young girl, now probably, how old is she now? She's got to be 6 or 7, yeah. And to watch that part of it, again, just another, if it wasn't tough enough to be the prime minister of a country, you throw that into the mix. And I'm so glad because you're by virtue of that, not by circumstance, you're leaning into the fact that this is a woman, a very capable woman, doing what I think a lot of people assumed couldn't be done by a woman on top of everything else. So, Lindsay, I love this about the film. It's just how much you lean into all of the things and that she is about and her personality and her traits that a lot of people would probably say are disqualifying characteristics, right?
Right, right. And in fact, you hear people say that in the movie. We went through a lot of talkback radio to get, the reactions of the public and weave those into the films. And you hear a lot of people questioning whether she's capable of doing both jobs and does she have the right to do both jobs? And it seems absurd, to be honest, to even ask that question. Michelle and I are both working moms. Michelle's got 4 kids. I've got 2 kids. We both have big careers. We're ambitious. So we know what it's like to have to balance all of those responsibilities. And we loved watching her try to balance it all, but it was also really important to us to show the struggle because the struggle is real. I started working on this. I had just had my second baby, and I was struggling with the same breastfeeding issues that she struggles with in the movie. And this is just not something we see enough of. And I think it's important for women to see the struggle, to understand that they're not alone, to normalize the struggle. So that was very important to us. It was also really important to us to show the partnership with Clarke and the support that he gives her because women are expected to do it all, but it's not fair. Women need support. Jacinda says this all the time, and it's true. Women like Jacinda, women like me, women like Michelle, we need the support of our partners. And I think having a portrait of that is really powerful. To see Clarke filling up the bottles, taking the stroller away, those are all the small acts of love that are behind the scenes that are enabling her to do her job. So we're also trying to normalize that and present an accurate portrait of what it looks like to balance all those things.
Absolutely. And Clark I'll just call him a cool guy.
He's a cool guy.
He's very popular, as you can imagine.
To see him shouldering the responsibility along with, obviously, with Jacinta in terms of doing the work of being a family, a part of a family, doing your part. Yeah, I'm just so impressed by all of it. And there's a couple of things I think we should talk about in terms of what happens while she's prime minister. But I do want to remind our listeners that we're speaking with Michelle Walshe and Lindsay Utz. They are the co-directors of the film Prime Minister. It is out on June 13th, I believe, here in Southern California. It'll be playing in a lot of markets, a lot of areas around Southern California and beyond. It's being released through Magnolia Pictures, is releasing it, a great distributor, especially for good documentary films like this one is. And so that's good to see that. And also an award-winning film from this last year, the 2025 Sundance Film Festival Audience Award World Cinema Documentary. So congratulations on the deserved acclaim for this film. And in terms of just describing the political environment that she was in, she came in a coalition government. There was a lot of people didn't think that coalition would come together. And when I heard it in the film, I thought, there's no way that's not a normal coalition for someone like her to be brought in as prime minister, but it worked out. And in terms of her place in New Zealand today, how is she sort of seen, Michelle? How is she seen now as a former prime minister?
Oh, it's so interesting. I reflect on this a bit, but obviously with the film coming out, and there's been a lot of publicity around her right now with her book as well, and of course because of the political climate in other places, without going into that. I think there is a lot of love. A lot of people miss her. There's a lot of people that are like, man, gosh, I missed that time where it felt like we had leadership that cared about the greater good. There is still a small, loud pocket of people who still feel a lot of anger and resentment around COVID. I think that's the same in everywhere you go. You have people who still feel very angry about the absolute justified difficulty of COVID. Now, where they pointed that is, perhaps people chose different places to express that pain and discomfort and strain that we were under in COVID. And I think there's still a pocket of people that feel, yeah, a lot of resentment. But for the most part, I've had so many people come up to me of late that know that we're associated with the film and just say, I'm so glad you're telling this story. I feel like we need to hear a different kind of leadership. And even my friends in the US are like, oh, thank gosh, there's something for us to hold on to, that there's a different kind of leadership. But Lindsay, you've got some really great examples from just being in the festivals over in the States to hear how it's been received over there.
And this is touched upon in the film. I mean, there was always a lot more criticism of her back home than overseas. And so it's all perspective and context. We still have not managed to elect a woman as president. I don't know if we will anytime soon. I hope in my lifetime or in my daughter's lifetime we see that. So I think over here, there's such a desire to have that kind of leadership in place that brings empathy, humanity, all the things, all the traits that women have and bring to leadership that have been seen as liabilities. They're actually assets. And we hope that this film shows that you can be strong and empathetic at the same time. You can be kind and have resolve. And she shows us that that's possible. And I think for audiences here, just a vision of that is enough to move people to tears. I mean, when audience members come up to me after the screenings, people are really emotional. They almost can't talk. It's just like something that we don't have here. It's so far from what we have that there's just palpable desire for more of it. And so that's been really moving. But like Michelle said, I mean, there's still a lot of anger towards it. If you go on X and you look up Jacinda Ardern, I mean, it is so vile and cruel and
Gendered.
yeah, and then you go on Blue Sky and people love her, and which is just a reflection, right, of the silos that we live in and the echo chambers that we live in. And so if you don't like her, you're going to continue to find excuses to not like her, and you're going to hate that there's a film out there that shows her as Michelle and I saw her, which is this incredible once in a lifetime leader. So that was the film we wanted to put out into the world. That's the film that we felt the world needed at this moment.
One last thing before I let you go, because in the film, the COVID, the slaughter at Christchurch, her leaning into environmental issues, sustainability, and all the rest of it, all these things were so vividly portrayed in the film, and I just appreciate how you approach those issues and her response to them. But I also love the fact that we were talking earlier about, optimism is a strength, empathy is a strength. It's not seen as that. All the ways in which she was talking about reframing those ideas around these, what is mostly referred to, unfortunately, as a woman's perspective. It's not true. It's just not a true thing to say. But in other words, the fact that you leaned into that, again, another part of the film that I just thoroughly enjoyed is how you leaned into that part of it.
Let's be honest. Let's look at the Donald Trump and Elon Musk fallout of this last week. It's like, and women are too emotional to lead. It's such a tired argument that there's just nothing to say. I think it's clear that women are natural born leaders and they bring tremendous assets to the job. And it's about time that we start acknowledging that and talking about it.
Well, Michelle, if you want to add anything to it, but I'm gonna just throw in the mix here. If it were up to these guys, the two you mentioned, women wouldn't have the right to vote. So, I mean, let's just put it the way it is.
We say that our women have had one generation of equality, and it's so insufferable for men like that they'd like to put us back in a box. Despite all of that, there are a heck of a lot of people like yourself, like our supportive partners, most of the men in my life who are wonderful champions of women. And hopefully soon it just won't be a part of a conversation.
When can we stop having this conversation?
Yeah, right. Really. Like, really?
This is part of the answer right here.
Yes, yeah, we hope so. We're contributing positively to the conversation.
Well, congratulations to both of our guests today, the co-directors, Michelle Walshe and Lindsay Utz. The film is called Prime Minister, award-winning, Sundance award-winning, soon to be in front of you somewhere, either in your local cinema and or some other device. You'll be able to watch this beautifully done documentary film, Prime Minister. Thank you to both of you for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate it.
You have been listening to Cinemaphile. I'm your host, Mike Kaspar, and you can listen to previous interviews as well as special programming, or you can subscribe by going to Cinemaphile, that's F-I-L-E, with Mike Kaspar, at Spotify. Until next time, thank you for listening.